This is a Tabernacle Tidbit, a bite-sized Tabernacle Talk of 5 minutes or less to help you get through your day when you only have a little bit of time. We hope this helps you to know Christ, grow in His Word, and show His love to others. Let's get started. Hello and welcome back to Tabernacle Tidbits. Today we are in 2 Timothy chapter 4 and verse number 11. The Apostle Paul is writing his last letter that we have before he passed, and he's writing to his son in the faith, Timothy. And in the previous verses, he's been going over his request that Timothy would come and be with him in Rome, as Paul is currently under arrest. He's imprisoned there in Rome. And he had some people that had been with him and had kind of been ministering to him, getting him some kind of basic necessities. And he had some people that had left him as a result of not wanting to be associated with him anymore and instead loving some of the things that they could have out in the world instead. And in today's verse, 2 Timothy 4 and verse 11, we get actually a really cool insight into Paul's mind and ministry and the resolution of something that we actually heard all the way back in Acts 15 last year when we were in that portion in Tabernacle Talk. 2 Timothy 4 and verse 11 says, "Only Luke is with me. Bring Mark with you, for he is useful to me in the ministry." Here, the Luke that is spoken about, this would be the writer of the Gospel of Luke. He would also be the writer of the book of Acts. And Luke was a companion of Paul, spent enormous amounts of time with him. He's called in Colossians 4 the beloved physician, and that would be his occupation, but obviously also a prolific writer and one who had studied much of the Old Testament. And as you look at some of the allusions throughout Acts and Luke, you can see that Luke really knew his Bible well. And certainly having a physician is great on hand when you are imprisoned in Rome, as the Romans were not particularly gentle in how they would treat prisoners. And so it would certainly have been a good thing for Paul to have Luke. But I want to focus the remainder of our time today on this second sentence in the verse, "Bring Mark with you, for he is useful to me in the ministry." This Mark would be John Mark, and this would be Barnabas's nephew. And he had initially been going to join Paul and Barnabas on a missionary journey, but he had gotten scared and he went back home. So then on the next missionary journey that Paul and Barnabas were going to take, Barnabas wanted to bring along his nephew again, and Paul refused to bring him along. We can see this in Acts 15 and verses 37 and on, where it says, "Barnabas wanted to take along John, who was called Mark, but Paul insisted that they should not take along the man who had deserted them in Pamphylia and had not gone on with them to the work. They had such a sharp disagreement that they parted company, and Barnabas took Mark with him and sailed off to Cyprus, but Paul chose Silas and departed, after being commended by the brothers and sisters to the grace of the Lord." So here, Mark had been the cause of Paul and Barnabas. Barnabas was one of the ones that had actually gotten Paul into the church at Jerusalem. That the church at Jerusalem did not want to have him there, but Barnabas convinced them to bring Paul in. And so Barnabas, in a lot of ways, was kind of like a father in the faith to Paul. And yet John Mark, through his cowardice the first time around, he had separated these dear friends who had traveled together, who had suffered together, and John Mark drove them apart. And we can think as well, Paul, who had once arrested and murdered Christians, should probably have had some more grace towards dealing with a person who got scared at one point. However, that animosity towards Mark and towards Barnabas did not last all of Paul's life. And we read right here in this verse that there is reconciliation. He says, "Bring Mark with you, for he is useful to me in the ministry." He says, I know Mark now. And now I know the way that he works, the way that he loves, the way that he cares, the way that he prays, and he is useful for the work of the ministry. And I see a couple of things here. Number one, we need to forgive other people. That's just kind of bare bones as Christians, to be honest with you. We ought to forgive others, even people that have driven a wedge between us and others. We ought to bring forgiveness because Jesus forgave us. Number two, realize that just because you once failed in the past does not mean that you are forever branded as a failure. This person that Paul refused to take with him on the journey, now he is specifically asking for by name from across the Roman Empire because of what God did in changing that person. So realize this: your failures of yesterday are not forever, that you can reconcile with others and you can forgive and love them because that's what Jesus did for you. Thanks for tuning in. Be in verse 12 tomorrow.